Today is June 17th, 2011, and we are here in the Senate chambers of the capital of the state of Illinois. Today we're going to hear House Bill 1385 presented by the Senate author, Senator Sandoval. Hi, I'm Senator Sandoval, and you're really going to like my bill. The Secretary of State likes it. Senator Sandoval, can you tell us about your bill? Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and members of the Senate. This is an initiative of the Secretary of State. This bill removes the religious exemption to the requirement that an individual provides his or her Social Security number when applying for a driver's license or instructor permit. Is there any discussion? Will there be any discussion? Senator Ryder, you are recognized. Hello there, I'm Senator Ryder. Senator, what is the problem that the Secretary of State's office is trying to solve by removing this religious exemption? Well, there are a number of faiths who claim Social Security as an exemption, and this allows the Secretary of State to be very objective. Really? It allows the Secretary of State's office to be very objective. Could you please elaborate on exactly what that means? So, you see, there's been a number of challenges made by a number of faiths in regards to the exemption of Social Security. And there have been a number of court lawsuits in regards to that. And this bill would allow the Secretary of State to avoid all of those lawsuits. Oh, my. Okay, Senator Sandoval. The lawsuits have been brought by different groups claiming that the Secretary of State's office shouldn't have denied them the right to do it when they allowed somebody else to do it. So your answer to that is to take away the religious exemption from everyone, even people who might have a legitimate claim to this? Well, you see, Senator Ryder, this is a cost-saving measure. Yeah, that's the ticket. It's a cost-saving measure on behalf of, the Secretary of State. And there are a number of frivolous and awkward groups that would pop up and they would be looking for an exemption, and this would allow the Secretary of State to avoid all of that nonsense and being put in this awkward position. Well, Senator Sandoval, we could save a lot of money by striking out religious exemptions all across the Illinois statutes. What groups are you aware of who take advantage of this exemption personally or particularly? I don't know any, Senator, personally. Has the Secretary of State advised you of any religious groups who take advantage of the exemption that's currently in law? Well, I have been made aware that some Amish communities, those Amish people, take advantage of the exemption. Yeah, in fact, I think it's like 14 that take advantage of the religious exemption on Social Security number in the state of Illinois, but that's all. Okay, well, Senator Sandoval, have you spoken to any members of the Amish community about your bill and got their feelings on that? Well, you see, I don't have any Amish in my district, Senator Ryder. I take at word the wisdom of our great Secretary of State, Jesse White, who is concerned about all faiths. Okay, this is a bill that you're sponsoring that would take away an existing religious exemption in law for a faith that is recognized, by the way, as a bona fide faith by the United States Supreme Court because the Secretary of State's office is apparently annoyed. Can you see the concern I have with the logical extension of your argument there, Senator Sandoval? Well, Senator Ryder, I'm not an attorney. I'm just a plain, simple man from the southwest side of Chicago. And I'd love to answer your question or get, more information to you. But here's the bottom line. I think that this bill goes a long way at saving the taxpayers' money, and it is very effective, and it's a good bill, and the most important part, it's sponsored by our great friend Jesse White, who's doing a wonderful job as Secretary of State. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this should trouble us all. With all due respect of the sponsor, he's not spoken to one member of the religious community that uses this as an exemption. And that the basis for eliminating the exemption altogether, not narrowing it, just zeroing it out, is that the Secretary of State's office doesn't want to deal with people or groups who would claim the exemption but are not entitled to it. If this is a logic that we want to proceed on issues like this, I would suggest that there are a laundry list of religious exemptions in the Illinois statute that are at risk because of the issue of convenience. Please vote no on this awful bill. Okay, so will there be any more discussion? And I am going to recognize Senator Jacobs. That's it. What do you have to say, Senator Jacobs? Well, I think with the conscious security issues that we have today, regardless of your religious belief, you ought to comply if you want to drive. Driving's not a right, it's a privilege. And so, if you want to drive in this state, you ought to give people the information they need so that they don't turn into some kind of terrorist or turn out to be some kind of criminal that we don't know about. Oh my goodness. Senator Hayne, you have something you want to say. Well, yes, it seems to me that's a minimal requirement of law, and it doesn't have anything to do with a great struggle of one's conscience, at least not mine. These are what, in the early days of common law were termed the king's highways. And to travel on the king's highways, you have to obey the king's edict. People's option is take a bus. Thank you. That was fabulous. And so now we're going to hear from Senator McCarter. Okay, so here's the deal. There's a small group of Amish that we actually represent. And yes, I know they're just a few. This is just not really a good thing to do, guys. And I understand, look, we are all against the terrorists, right? But, trying to bring up that name in the same debate when you're trying to protect some Amish folks, well, that's just very disappointing. Senator Murphy, did you have something you wanted to say? I understand, the sponsor got a request from the state elected official and that he has a lot of respect for him and he's trying to make his life easier. And I can appreciate that. But I guess what is troubling about this is that here we are deciding, we're picking and choosing which religious tenets warrant recognition or respect from the state and which don't. Now, I don't personally have an issue with this, but a lot of people do. Okay, a small number of people do. And this time, it's a small group that apparently doesn't have a lobbyist. That's a good point there. That's a very good point. Senator Sandoval, you had something you wanted to say? Yes. This is just not a valiant effort to support a public official that's widely respected and probably the expert in regards to the implementation of our driving laws in the state of Illinois. This is not a frivolous, we're talking about a group that doesn't drive. They drive buggies and carts. So it's a widely known fact that the Amish are not vehicle drivers. Their freedom does not allow them to drive vehicles. They drive carts and buggies for the most part. Heaven's sakes. Okay, let's just move on here. The question is, shall House Bill 1385 pass? All those in favor will vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Madam Secretary, please take the record on that question. There are 33 voting aye, and 21 voting nay. House Bill 1385, having received the required constitutional majority, is hereby declared to have passed. Okay, so this is ridiculous. This was in 2011 in the Senate chambers, the capital of the state of Illinois. And so here's the deal. Believe it or not, we're not required to have a social security number in the United States. And some Amish people can't have a social security number because it violates the tenets of their religion. They have an easy fix for this. The Social Security Administration will provide those without a Social Security number with a taxpayer ID form that generally that's accepted in lieu of a Social Security number. And this is what they did in Illinois. But apparently the Illinois Secretary of State decided that the law allowing for this religious exemption to provide a Social Security number, which was permitted by law, that the Amish did not have to do, he found that just to be too inconvenient. And apparently the Secretary of State was worried that if they let, I think it was 14 Amish people have this exemption, in the words of Senator Sandoval, that, you know, other awkward groups might want an exemption too. So this is apparently not a big problem here in Illinois. So at the bidding of the Illinois Secretary of State, Senator Sandoval presents his brilliant argument on behalf of House Bill 1385. When I read this transcript, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So this is why I have little finger puppets, because this is ridiculous. And so I read all 11 pages, which I cut a lot of that out. That was what these little guys told you came from the transcript. Okay? So at the end of 11 pages of this brilliant discussion, it passes. So these are the guys up there that are supposed to be protecting your rights, serving the people, and they fail.